Hey guys, this is Mike coming at you today from Player One Video Games with another episode 14. I remember this time. Today, as you can see, we are talking about the Dreamcast. What was it like when it came out, before it came out? How did you get one? What did you have to do? How tough was it? All kinds of stuff. I'm going to bring you back to 9999. Ooh, the launch date. That's an easy one to remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I'm going to have to go back a little bit further than 9999. So I'm actually going to go back to the year that the Sega CD was released. I guess was 94, I forget. I guess 94, yeah. So I'm going to take you back 5 years earlier. And of course, my feeble little brain, when the Sega CD came out and all of its Dragon Slayer movie type games, I thought, especially on Road Avenger, I said that in the previous videos, that I thought that was graphics that you could actually play, those full motion video game graphics where they weren't, you just went left or right on the joystick and it did its thing. So in my brain, those were controllable graphics. So even though I enjoyed the PS1 when it came out and the Saturn a lot, I was looking ever since the launch of the Sega CD for Dreamcast quality graphics, right? Because I thought the Sega CD was going to be Dreamcast quality graphics in my mind back then. But of course it wasn't. And even on the PlayStation 1, as much as I liked it, I'll search for Japanese games that I thought maybe was going to look like the Dreamcast, the Gundam, a Gundam import or something that was going to look really good like Dreamcast. All right, so let's start this adventure. The Dreamcast came out quite a bit before the American, in Japan, before the American release, at least 6 months or so. So, and I was married to my first wife. I was working, had a full-time job and all that good stuff. Had a house payment, had a couple car payments, just in the fold of life. No kids though. And the Dreamcast was the first system that I can remember that I knew of that you could pre-order, right? So I pre-ordered the Dreamcast from Electronic Boutique in Baybrook Mall. And I, as soon as I could, probably 4 months before it came out, maybe 5 months. But I was so excited because you heard all the stuff coming in. The internet was just starting to take off at that time. Kind of decent with DSL, I think had just come out in '99. So things where you could download a 5-second clip, in
quick time.
Yeah, and instead of taking 20 minutes for a 5-second clip, it take you a few minutes. So you were seeing what was going on in Japan, and I couldn't wait. I could not wait. So guess what I did?
What did you do, Mike?
I called Japan.
Did you really?
I said, "Can you send me one of your Dreamcasts, please?"
And they said, "No, Gaijin."
Right. They told me, "Yes, sir."
Oh, really?
They did. So I ordered it from, I don't exactly remember what store it was, but I know one thing, they couldn't hardly speak any English. So I ordered a Japanese Dreamcast, knowing that it would not be able to play American games. So when I knew that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to sell it right before the American launch, get my money, and then buy the American one,
The hustle's real.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to do. So the only game that they had was, they had 2 games out that I could buy. They had in stock. They had Sega Rally.
Oh, look at that. Japanese version of Sega Rally.
And Godzilla Generations.
Oh, look at that.
So I could only barely afford, I couldn't really afford this.
Now, let's take a look at those.
I was credit carding them, right?
Ooh.
And going to make payments on it. So I could only afford one game. And which one did I choose?
Please tell me you chose
Sega Rally.
Okay, good. Woo!
All right. So I chose Sega Rally. So it took about a month, 3-4 weeks at least, for the system to come in. And I got home from work that day and there was the package, right? And actually, I lived in an apartment. So at that moment, I lived in an apartment. I didn't live in a house. So they had it at the front office and I grabbed it, went home. I couldn't wait. I was hooking it up, right? And so I had it in the bedroom for some reason. I don't know why I didn't hook it up in the living room. So I had it in the bedroom and I just hooked it up to the TV. I put Sega Rally in, right? and I was leaning back on the bed like this. Of course, these are wired controllers. I was leaning back on the bed, and there's only about this much walking distance between the bed and the television. So, this is no lie, no writer's embellishment here. The Sega logo was on. It was loading up. I hadn't even got to play the game yet, and guess who walks in front and not seeing this controller?
Oh no!
My ex-wife.
There were the grounds right there.
Walks across it, hits this, jerks the system, the lid pops open, and the disc flies out. All the way across the room, like 8 feet.
Oof.
And I go, I'm going to kill someone. Maybe myself.
Oh,
I ran over there, I looked at the disc, and it was lasered.
Oh no!
I thought maybe it'll still play. Popped it in, would not play. And back then there was no place to buff your disc. This was '99.
Right. That's when they were telling you to smear peanut butter on and put it in the freezer.
Yeah, that's right. So I was so angry. I barely could afford this thing. It took a month. So what did I do?
Filed the next day.
I filed it. No. I called it Japan. Japan, help! Do you have any games in stock? I have to order. We only have Godzilla Generations in stock. So I bought it. 3-4 weeks again goes by. I get my Godzilla Generations. I lock all doors. Don't let anybody in the apartment. And I put in Godzilla Generations. I was so underwhelmed.
Oh no.
Because the graphics were so sparse. It was slow moving.
What about your import store though that you used to go to?
They were closed.
Oh, okay.
They closed in like '94.
Well, there you go. Okay, so
there was no place around here, except I'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
But so I got Godzilla, and I was very underwhelmed. I spent a ton of money on this thing, and by the time I could get another game maybe or find one, the American was about to come out. So what I was doing at that point, I was trying to dump this thing somewhere. Right, because I wasn't going to be able to play anything.
Right.
So there was a place called Game Pros, I think, in Pasadena Town Square Mall. They had like 3 of them. They took the system in, and they gave me quite a bit for it. I got close to my money back on everything, and so I just sat back and waited on the launch. Right. So by then, another month or 2 comes by, and here comes the launch. And guess what?
What?
It was so wonderful. I was unemployed on launch day. So I had my all day to play with this thing when it came out.
But you had the money to buy it.
Well, I had pre-ordered it, and I think I had put that.
Oh, you put the money in. Oh, see, look at you.
When I sold the Dreamcast, I put that money down.
Okay.
And I pre-ordered 2 or 3 games with it too. So I was unemployed, waiting on this thing. 9/8/99. I could not sleep because I just knew from pictures and from the little video I saw that this was the system I had been wanting for the last 5 years. The graphics I've been wanting, the gameplay I've been wanting. So I probably got only about 2 hours of sleep that night. So they were going to open up the mall at 9 o'clock to go so you can get into Electronic Boutique. And I was wondering, oh man, how many people are going to be waiting in line? I hope I get my system, even though I pre-ordered it. Well, there was only 9 people there.
9 people at $9,999?
And that's exactly right. And I never even thought about that. But there were 9 people that had pre-ordered it. So there was 9 of us in line, and nobody else waiting to buy one, right? So it was 9 in the morning.
Hey!
9 people in line.
Whoa!
$9.99. My God. Wow, I should have bought a lottery ticket that day.
Were you dressed to the nines?
Yes, I was. And I had a number 9 breakfast meal at McDonald's. So, no, we'll scratch that. So, 9 lives. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, we'll stop. Pause that.
No.
Okay, so I get it. I go home, and the games on launch day that I bought.
Yeah, what did you get?
Okay, I got Sonic Adventure.
Uh-huh.
I got NFL 2K.
Uh-huh.
I think Soul Calibur was a launch
I
game.
feel like it was.
And I think that was it. I think I got those 3 at launch. Yeah, I believe it was those 3 at launch. So the first thing I put in even though I loved football games back then, and I had been waiting on a good game since Madden '93.
Guys, go back, watch the old videos.
Yeah.
He talks all about those.
Because I was pissed at '94. I liked '95. I liked '95 on the 3DO though, but it still didn't play as good as '93. You know, then I was just searching for game day, blah blah blah. So this one I was waiting with bated breath. But I put in Sonic Adventure first. And the first thing I realized went up on this screen right here was the first thing that hit me and shocked me and just wowed and floored me was Sonic Grass.
Whoa.
When I saw this grass, it doesn't look as good on here as on a tube TV. When I saw Sonic Grass, I freaked. Because everything else, PS1 grass was like almost like green concrete.
Right.
You know, or
really low.
Yeah, it was flat. It didn't have, you know, any. So PS1 grass was not that great. And so the grass on this game, it really, really just floored me. I love this game. Played it to death. It's still one of my top games of all time that I like is Sonic Adventure.
See, they did Sonic right in 3D.
It transitioned very well to this 3D. You know, I know they tried with 3D Blast and stuff like that, but the first true, this to me is I think the first true 3D Sonic game. I mean, they did a great job. Excellent job. I loved it, and I thought at that moment I went, the system I have been waiting on, not really since '93, but my whole life, since Superman. On the Atari 2600.
Go watch that video, guys.
It was here. That's right, Dreamcast. I heard you. I love you too.
Aww.
So the Dreamcast was finally here. The system that I wanted my whole life. The graphics, the gameplay. I wished it did have dual analog, but it wasn't a huge deal at the time still because first-person shooters were barely kicking on the PC. In '98, '99 when Unreal Tournament and Quake. But, you know, console couldn't hardly handle that anyway. So it was okay, you know, for the time being. So this game just floored me. And then Soul Calibur, the graphics were just, when I played that one, the graphics were just amazing. The sound, the graphics, it had the complete package. The gameplay was great. But really what wowed me on Soul Calibur was the graphics. So we had great gameplay with Sonic and great grass, great graphics on the Soul Calibur, and NFL 2K, when it came out, well, when I got it launch day, I played it probably the most. I loved everything about it, the sound, the gameplay mechanics, the graphics of it. It was the perfect storm, the perfect, for me personally, I love this first intro when the helmets pop up and the sound comes up. It is, let's see if it triggers it. We might have got a stall out here. Oh, there we go. Come on, Dreamcast, you can do it. Yeah, here we go. This part right here. I mean, that intro sound just still is awesome. So and then NBA 2K came out too, and it was just almost as good. So those two games, so I had those three games, and oh no, actually I had four games. Trick Style was a launch game. So we don't have the case for it, we have the game, but Trick Style was a hoverboard game. And I love that one too. The gameplay wasn't quite as good as other games, but the graphics were amazing. It was still really, really fun. So launch on this system was perfection. It had so many titles. You know, there was other ones too. There was an Air Force Delta Storm, Ready to Rumble. You know, there was at least 10 games, something like that, or more, out on launch. And I wanted to buy them all, but of course I was unemployed.
Right.
And I just got what I could at that time, and I was thrilled. I played all day. I did not stop. My wife was at work, and I played from 9 a.m. or whenever I got out, all the way till she got home from work, had dinner and I just kept on playing. I think I played all the way till 5 a.m. because I didn't have to go to work. When she got up to go to work, I went to bed. I played probably from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning.
Wow.
I really did. I was euphoric. I was in a state of like, this is heaven almost. You know, it was that big of a deal to me at the time. The Dreamcast was. It's probably for me because the waiting for this. Everybody was waiting because, you know, grew up in '79 with Atari 2600 graphics with a blip, a dot.
Right.
And you knew once the Sega Genesis was out, you go, well, even the NES, but for sure when the Sega Genesis come out and the Neo Geo, you go, this stuff, the graphics are getting better. These graphics can get better and better and better. And the PC was a step ahead, so you were looking at the PC a little bit and going, okay, we can get there. And then so I had been waiting on Dreamcast moment, Dreamcast graphics and gameplay since the Atari 2600, really and truly. But I knew that they could happen, you know, later than that. So that's the beginning of it. Now the Dreamcast, you know, it got overshadowed the next year when the locomotive from Japan came with the PS2, right? Everybody was just kind of abandoned this, and a lot of people don't really know. I can tell you right now exactly why the Dreamcast failed, for two reasons. One, it was not the games or the gameplay or the quality of the games. These were amazing games. In fact, I don't want to go too deep into the PS2, but when the PS2 launched, of course, I got one. That's going to be the next video. But guess which system I played number one? Dreamcast still. Even after the locomotive coming from Japan, PS2 hit the shores, I was like, I still like my Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is number one, and I will get to that on the next video. Why I don't want to talk too much about the PS2. So, but as everybody knows, the Dreamcast, it was somewhat of a failure, right? Let's talk about why, to me, it failed. Because a lot of people will say, well, it wasn't as good as the PS2 or an Xbox or things like that. But for me, here's why it failed. Because remember, in 1998, if you wanted a DVD or a CD burner, nobody could afford one in like 97, 98. The internet was slower than molasses, right?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, 98 comes rolling around. 99, you could afford a CD burner on your computer. The internet, DSL comes out, so you could download big files. Well, people cracked this code very easily. So what happened was, where is that Utopia? Oh, it's inside of this. So what happened was people were you could buy burned games like this one, like I did. You could buy burned games for $4 on the internet.
We do not recommend this, by the way.
Yeah, in the old days. And all you had to do was have this Utopia boot disc. And sometimes they would even put it on the game if it was enough room. And this burned game, $4 burned game, would play in your system. So let's try it real quick.
Now, once again, we don't recommend this because this will burn out your laser.
This Dreamcast here might not like it. So let's check it out. So how you did it back then, you put in a Utopia boot disc, and this is a burned copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I don't know if this thing's going to work or not. I used to have a few of them, and all these are really old discs. So this, you put in this Utopia, a little deer will pop up here in a second if it reads it. You put in the game, and it'll play it, right? So that, to me, you could buy $4 burned games, is why this failed. And the secondary reason was that, I don't think it's going to play in this one. I'll just keep it going. The secondary reason was that it did not have a DVD player in it, and the PS2 was the cheapest DVD player on the market when it came out.
And that's when DVDs were hot.
When DVDs were hot, right, during that time. So, let's see if this thing pops up. Come on, reindeer, or whatever you were. Rudolph, something. There we go. Okay, so all it was, you take that out, put in your Marvel or whatever disc it was, and hit start. Now I'm going a little early on failures and what I didn't like about it, but the reason I'm doing this early is because this happened very early in the life of the Dreamcast.
Mm-hmm.
Basically within a year of the Dreamcast coming out, because it came out September, by the next summer, this was a big deal. This was a big thing. And I bought a few burn games because I couldn't afford everything I wanted. A lot of people couldn't. So it was a way to play imports too. You could play your imports on if you had some. But it was mainly for burn games. So to me, that's what drove the market down. And the reason I know it is this, because when the Dreamcast launched, it was the most successful launch in history. They sold the most systems in launch, right? So I want to get past that. We talked about the badness of it.
Okay, let me say one more thing.
Tell me some more about what you're thinking.
So my thing with the Dreamcast was, I was a Genesis owner and loved the Genesis, and then they came out with the Sega CD. Oh, this is the hot new thing you need for your Genesis. Then the Saturn came out, or not the Saturn, but the 32X came out. Oh, this is the hot new thing you need for your Genesis. And then no, now you need a Saturn. No, and no, the Saturn is not going to be it's not the future, even though it just came out. So when this came out, I'm like, I have no faith in Sega right now. And that's when I jumped ship.
Right.
To Sony.
Okay.
So I blame Sega.
Well, let's keep talking about. Let's go back to goodness.
Let's go back to goodness.
All right. Well, because it makes me sad thinking about the Dreamcast. Should have had another couple of years. It had 2 solid years, 3 for 3 really, but it should have had 5. It really should have had 5 years of good games. Japan, it might have lasted another year than over here. And what I loved also about the Dreamcast, and kind of hated, one of the most fun arcade games at the time in '99 was Crazy Taxi. I love the arcade game, right? Let's put that in there. Yeah. Right?
Let's see it.
So let's put this in here. This is one of the
Don't say it, show it.
This is one of the next titles that came out. So here's a cool thing. This basically was the same type of thing going on in the arcades.
Oh yeah, it was the Naomi board. Yeah,
the Naomi board. Right. Thanks for that. And so it was arcade quality, perfect graphics. Crazy Taxi looked and played just like the arcade. Here's another one. F355. My God, if you've never played the arcade, it's a 3-screen setup. It is the most simulation at that time. The biggest simulated game that you could play. It was. Uh-oh, it's not reading it.
No.
All right, guys, and then we swapped out Dreamcast here. So we're gonna start up Crazy Taxi. And what I was saying is, what I loved about the Dreamcast too was that it was arcade perfect. Especially if it was a Sega game like this one, Hydro Thunder. Oh yeah, the battery. This one or Hydro Thunder. Stuff like that. So, but it also was a negative because it partly helped to kill the arcades because you could play those arcade games perfectly.
Man, we're just kicking this machine when it's down.
I don't want to say it. I hate talking any negative.
See, that's what happened to this one. It couldn't handle our negativity, so it's like, guys.
It was a little too sensitive.
All right, we'll take it, we'll cuddle it, and we'll get them back to going.
Games like Crazy Taxi, Hydro Thunder were amazing. I loved them. I would come home from lunch at work. Come home from lunch to play Crazy Taxi.
Look at that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to get copyright striked on that.
So, I would come home and let you play these games. This game it's still a great game. Even though the PS2 came out, this was my number one. Again, this was my number one choice.
Yeah, that looks
Right.
just like the arcade.
Yeah, it's arcade perfect, 100%. Here's what I was. Let me throw in a twist because this was during this time too. In 1999 to 01, when the Dreamcast was at its height, I used to write for 2 online review sites. One was sports-gaming.com and one was mpog.com. And what was cool was they would send me the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I would, of course, play it and review it and send them back and review it and go online. So they would send me games, and my payment was I got to keep the game. And one of the games that I reviewed was this one, Test Drive Le Mans, and I would have never probably bought this game, but they sent it to me, and I got to keep it, and I got to really play it. And man, I love this game, and it was crazy because you can actually drive 24 hours. In real life, you have to sit there and drive for 24 hours if you want to. At the time, I said this was the most realistic driving game I've ever played. Yeah. And I gave it like a real crazy high score.
So take that, Gran Turismo.
The control was great. It was fun. So I, to this day, still love this driving game. Really, really good. So there was a few others I would review also, but stuff like these games here. Power, this was a very unique game. 3D fighter. Nothing else like it ever came before it to me. Awesome game, because it couldn't have, because it had to be on the Dreamcast. Ready to Rumble is just pure arcade fun. And oh god, we're gonna have to do.
Hold on, what's this Rally Rush? What's that?
We'll talk about that at the end.
Okay. Wait, let's see what's here. Mike, what's there a PlayStation game over here for?
Okay, you want to talk about that? Good timing. There was a company, right?
It's a PlayStation game.
There was a company called Bleam. I believe it was Bleamcast. See that? So
what?
You could load this disc up and put in Tekken 3 into your Dreamcast, PlayStation 1 Tekken 3, and it would make the graphics Dreamcast quality.
So you could play PlayStation 1 games, certain ones, on a Dreamcast.
It was Tekken. What was the other two?
Let's see. There
Gran
was
Turismo,
and Metal Gear.
So
that's right.
Let's give it a shot
here,
while we're
here. Can I see this? Let me see this here real quick. Look at this.
See if it's true. I have not done this in years.
Look at that.
Yeah, I haven't done this in years, so it's been. I would probably haven't done this in. My God, I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. 10 years. I haven't tried this.
Look at that, guys.
So let's see if I even put this disc in the right way. Come on, Dreamcast, you can do it. So we're putting in the Bleamcast Tekken 3 Bleamcast disc.
This is really cool. This is really cool.
I might have put it in upside down. Yeah, let's try it this way. I can't tell the difference. Or maybe it's not going to work at all. It's like I said, it's been 10 years since I've played this. But I brought this just in case. And you know what was so cool about this? This was one of my favorite PS1 games. Okay, here we go.
Whoa, did you see that correction? Bleam was not licensed.
Uh-oh.
That was funny.
Bleam is not licensed by Affiliated.
That's hilarious.
So if you've never heard of Bleamcast, it was a blip on the radar. Okay, so it was 01 when this came out. So this is the progression we're taking the system. Insert the Tekken 3. Let's see how much better Tekken 3 looks on this one.
I can't believe we're putting a PS1 game into a Dreamcast and playing it. That is crazy.
Let's see if it looks better.
I'm gonna do this. So that way you can do like a little side by side comparison if you wanted to.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Give it a little room on this side here.
Because I still play this game all the time, and we'll see how good it looks, or how much better it looks. I wish we would have it hooked up with the. Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, look at
100%
that.
clear. 100% clear, isn't it? No grain. Look.
That looks great. Oh, holy crap!
Yeah, it definitely made a difference back then. I remember it too, making a difference. Okay, so that's cool.
Bleamcast.
I'm glad we got that to work. So yeah, Bleamcast.
That's so cool.
I don't even know how much that's going for. Have you? Did you remember the bleamcast before I said it, or?
I remember it for Gran Turismo.
Okay, you remembered it for that.
And it really did clear up Gran Turismo a whole lot. If you guys remember Gran Turismo on PS1, it was kind of, it was very grainy. You know, it was very jagged.
Oh yeah.
And the bleamcast really made that clean up.
Okay, so I'm playing Bleamcast, Tekken 3. I'm playing, you know, all the crazy taxi, F-355. I'm buying stuff for the Dreamcast. You know, I'm having fun with it. I'm buying 1 or 2 games for my PlayStation 2 also. But when this game came out, this was a really late release. Like, this was probably one of the last games I bought brand new for the Dreamcast. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. When this one came out, let's put it in here and get it loaded.
Yes.
You know, it took me for a drive, you know, or a ride.
Took you for a ride.
Yeah. Whenever it came out.
Do.
So, I probably have more hours on this game than any Dreamcast game by far. This is probably, I have probably the second or third most hours of any game I've ever played. Madden 93 on the Genesis is number 1. This is probably 2, 3, right up there. Oh yeah. And the reason I played it so much is because you had to unlock characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was, for the time, it was an amazing amount of characters. And it played fast and sweet and sleek and crisp. And one thing I loved about it, this was one of my favorite D-pads to play with. It was the perfect mushiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I love this controller? I actually kind of did, because it was light.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't, and of course you could have, this was the memory card, was the VMU.
You gotta remember, Tamagotchi was really big at that time.
Tamagotchi was big, so that's what they modeled this one after. And you could actually play, every game like had a little mini game in it that it was, and it might have been bad. Most of them were.
Yeah.
But that's how you saved your games, and it fit right inside of here. But this game here was, to me, the last hurrah for the Dreamcast. And you know what's crazy about this game? It was difficult to find because it was at the end of the life. Most places only got 1 or 2, and you would call up and say, "Hey, you have them in stock?" No. I had to drive all the way to Sears in Lake Jackson. I drove all the way to Sears in Lake Jackson to get this game. I remember calling everywhere around here, and there was a lot of places in 99 around here, and nobody had it. And then I just started calling the other further out. And Sears and Lake Jackson had it, and they only had 1 copy.
Oof.
I hauled butt down there and grabbed it. So,
you know what's funny about this, Mike?
What?
Is that subsequent releases of this game, this is the version they use.
Really?
Like when they put it on the 360 and the PS3, they used this version.
Well, out of those 3 versions, the Dreamcast, original Xbox, and PS2, the ones that had a hard disk, this is by far the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
This is the gold standard.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean this. It's just a blast to play.
Don't get excited about that price, guys. That is not the price on it.
That's
now.
the price that I bought.
Yeah, that's how much it used to be.
It used to be when I bought it. So okay, so the Dreamcast is winding down. I'm playing PS2 a little bit more. What was the nail in the coffin, kind of, for the Dreamcast? What do you think did it?
For you?
For me, what do you think happened? Just a quick guess. You know, this is hard to guess because it could be a million things.
Let's see. The PS2 came out. Xbox.
Well, Grand Theft Auto 3.
Oh, that'll do it.
When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, I stopped whatever I was doing. I don't want to get into it.
Right.
But when the Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, this system went into the bedroom.
Next video, guys. Get ready for it.
So, I still love. This is still one of my favorite systems of all time, especially if I'm playing games like Tony Hawk here too. If it's a game that was on the PS1, I always play it on the Dreamcast because it's always better graphics like that. And what else is cool is they were still, I don't know if they still are, but they were still making new games.
They still are today.
They still are
to
making
this
them?
date. There are still new games being made, especially in Europe.
Yeah, right. This was a German company that made this. You know, let's pop this in here.
There's like Pixel Heart and oh my goodness, so many.
So yeah, and I own a couple of these, but yeah. So it still has a you know, I guess a decent following for new games because it's easy to program for because it's like a computer, you know. And oh, hey, let's not forget about the keyboard.
Oh,
Yeah, so you could buy this. You could get. Oh, well, you know what? We skipped over a whole thing with this
what's that?
online gameplay.
Yep, that's why we're now mentioning the keyboard.
Yes. So back then, mainly the games that you would play online for that I remember was NFL 2K, NBA 2K. Those were to me the biggies, and it had a 56K modem, right? And so it wasn't broadband, and it actually played fairly well. You know, some games would stutter. I don't know. Did you ever play it online?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I played. I almost said it was Final Fantasy, but I was corrected earlier. It's Fantasy Star.
Right. Yeah, that was a big one. So you know, the gameplay when you're playing somebody would stutter at times, and slow down, and it'll pick back up. But just to be able to do this in 1999,
but it
2000,
worked.
It worked. You know, but there was stuff before that, like the Sega Channel and things like that. But it didn't feel like you were online.
Right.
It didn't feel like that. It just was downloading a game that you could play.
Right.
So this was to me the first time you played against somebody. What it is now. And what's cool about the keyboard, you could actually get on the internet with the Dreamcast. But I did it, and it was slower than molasses. I mean, Yahoo would load up like this. The main page.
Oof.
I mean, that slow. It would take that long to load. So getting on the internet, even though you could boot it up with a browser and get on there with the keyboard, the main reason you bought the keyboard was
Typing of the Dead.
Yeah, and I wish that we had it. Tim has one at his house. I should have told him
Here,
to bring it.
I'll make some room so we can get a little gameplay footage of it.
If we put Typing of the Dead.
Woo.
And so, yeah, I loved Typing of the Dead. I actually liked it better than the one with the gun.
Then House of the Dead, really?
House of the Dead at the time, yeah. I don't know why, but I loved doing it on the keyboard better. And there was, like the Sega Bass Fishing, the controller, those games were a lot of fun. It really, to me, it was a great system. This system has just enough games to where you don't feel sorry for it.
Right.
Like say, a Jaguar or
right.
2X. You're like, oh, you kind of feel bad for those systems and not enough. But this one has enough. I don't know how many there are exactly, but there's enough games for everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention stuff like, I remember playing Skies of Arcadia. That was a late launch.
Yes.
But here's the thing. By the time Skies of Arcadia came out, I kind of had stopped playing RPGs. I didn't have time for them. But my God, I made time for Skies of Arcadia. It was just the most unique gameplay for an RPG I had ever played. That, you know what? I used to say Final Fantasy VII or was my last true RPG that I just played the whole thing through. But I think Skies of Arcadia in 01, whenever it came out, that was probably the last one that I just totally got myself into and got lost in that one.
So without spoiling anything, okay, for the next video, if Grand Theft Auto 3 came out for the Sega Dreamcast,
it could do it.
Would you have?
Because I'm going to just mention one thing. PlayStation 2 had anti-aliasing issues.
Oh yeah, it's not nearly as good looking as this system.
So if the Dreamcast could have done a DVD and had all the size of a DVD with all the information, it could do Grand Theft Auto. Now it tried, but with Shenmue, right? It tried to do that type of game. I was excited for Shenmue. Here comes a wah-wah, right? Like I said, I hate talking anything negative about this, but when Shenmue came out, couldn't wait. I bought it, and I was so bored with it. I got bored quickly.
It's a slow burn game.
Yeah, and I didn't really give it a full chance because I wanted that thing. I wish it would have hit hard. and fun. I hated the button time.
Oh, quick time events.
Quick time.
Yeah.
I hate that. I still hate that to this day. So that was the first time I'd ever seen that. I said, why am I not controlling this? I'm hitting this button when it tells me to hit. I don't want to do
You felt
that.
like you went back to Dragon's Lair?
Yeah, it is like that. Exactly. And that's the last thing I wanted. So I was disappointed with Shenmue. It's a game that I should go back and revisit. But they made a second one.
Yeah.
And then they
And a third one.
And a third one. They poured it all the way out.
Well, yeah.
But they had some other stuff. Jet Grind Radio was great. Space Channel 5.
Cannon Spike. I'm gonna throw that out there because that one's Neo Pulse, or what was it called? Pulse Neo.
Yeah, it had some great. It has every genre. Just the Dreamcast has great games in every genre.
Yeah.
And if you don't own one, you're missing out. To me, if it's one of those, if I was on a deserted island, I hate to say this, and I could only have one system in all its library, it would have to be the PS2 because there's so many games and it does everything.
That's cheating, though.
That's cheating. It's a cheat code. But for me, I'll just say this: if time stood still in 1999 and 2000, and graphics never got any better than the Dreamcast, I would be perfectly happy.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly happy to this day. I really would be. Even though stuff's in 4K, Spider-Man Miles Morales looks amazing. I don't care. To me, time could have stopped right here, and I would have been just fine. So, you have any thoughts about the Dreamcast? I'm kind of winding it down.
So, my experience with this is my cousin bought it, and we played this game all night long.
All right. Let's get ready to.
Oh, and I was just blown away by the graphics. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
And it was fun gameplay.
So.
Oh, Tim!
Tim! What's up, Tim?
I'm never in these videos. So, you said earlier about putting a PS1 game in a Dreamcast.
Uh-huh.
What about putting a Dreamcast game in a Sony system?
Okay. I'm glad you reminded me. So one time we used to have a PS3 set up here years ago that we'd test out games and play games on, and I accidentally grabbed a Dreamcast game and put it into the PS3 and waited on it to load up. I thought I was putting in a PS3 or PS1 game, probably is what I thought. And I was waiting on it to load, and a nice woman's voice came on and said this is a Dreamcast game, and that was it. And you were here, right? And I think Austin.
You can try it at home.
Do it at home. Oh, you guys have homework.
I think Austin and Andy were here back then. Some old customers of ours, and I freaked. We all kind of freaked. We're like, how is this possible? What's going on here? So that. I'm glad you reminded me. That was a cool, funny moment. But it wasn't the fat PS3 that we played it in. But I would imagine it would do it in a slim or a other one.
Hopefully so.
Yeah. But it was in the fat or launch PS3. It was definitely a launch one. So yeah, that was a funny moment. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Tim. So I'm glad to end this on a fun note, not a sour note.
Yeah.
But I love this system.
We love this system.
We love it. I think
check it out.
There's very few people I've come across. Some people would say, hey, this system was ahead of its time. That's why it's failed. But it was not. It was perfect timing where it was at. I think if it had a DVD player, it would have totally made it.
Mike, can I go ahead and show the fine people our lovely Dreamcast sections?
Yes.
All right. So you guys got to come see these. We got them right here, back here, because there were actually a good variety of games. So these are like our $high games, but man, fantastic stuff. And then I'm gonna swing over here. Everybody get motion sickness. Blech. And don't sleep on the Dreamcast.
Oh,
so Mike,
you caught me playing or trying to. So,
tell us where we can find all these lovely Dreamcast games and systems.
101 West Parkwood Avenue in beautiful downtown Friendswood, Texas, just south of Houston. And our phone number is 281-992-GAME 4263. So come on down to Player One.
It'll be a great time.